Hello, innovative teachers. Are you thinking about a master's degree in STEM? Well, today we chat about our master's degrees and what we have found to be helpful and useful for the classroom. Also, if you're already loving our podcast, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. This helps spread the word to other innovative teachers who would love to connect to our community. Stay tuned for another great episode full of tons of useful information. We can't wait to learn and grow with you.
Awesome. We are so excited to deliver this episode to you guys all about our master's degrees and STEM. Before we start, we always talk about how popular things could be and we research them. I didn't think this one would be very popular, but Naomi
No.
was like, no, it is. Like there's many people that are talking about this. So I feel like, we were like, hey, we might as well kind of talk about the good, the bad of our programs that maybe we felt maybe weren't useful, and then the things that we remember that we were like, oh, that kind of stuck with us as far as those big moments maybe that we had while we were on our journeys.
Well, I
So
really remember because I'm doing mine right
I was
now.
gonna say, yeah. How close are
It's
you
very
to done? I didn't ask you that before.
I started in May 2020, so I should be done around May or June 2021.
Nice.
Hmm.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, I think it's manageable. So we'll talk about that. That's one of the good things.
So that was kind of actually one of the good things I was going to talk about is like the timely manner that some of these programs are done in. So I got mine through Western Governors University, or it's known as WGU. Everything is online for them and it's time based. So you don't pay per credit hour, you pay per time. So you buy like a 6 months block, and then another 6 months block if you need it. So one of the things that I really liked, because I'm the kind of person when I was in college getting like my bachelor's degree, when our professor would give us like our syllabus, and he would
Yeah.
say like, well, hey, this is due in like a month. I would be like, can I just do it now? And then you give
Oh,
me feedback. Because I'm that kind of person. Like I like to do things really early. I'm like the opposite of most college students. I feel like I'm like, I got to get it done now. Like I want to get everything done now. So
yeah, that's not the norm.
yeah, that's not. So with the master's degree, I thought I liked that it was done in like kind of like that, like it could be done in a timely manner both ways. So for me, like I got things done quickly and I wanted to get them done fast. Whereas maybe there's someone's situation where things are going to take them a little bit longer. Well, you can take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
That's completely up to you. So I think it's good for people to know their situation. And that's like a good thing, I would say, as far as like the online programs like WGU. All kinds of different situations can either, benefit that program, or maybe it takes you a long time and then that could be maybe like a bad thing, I guess. But at the same time, at least you're getting it done and you're getting it done on your time rather than stressing about it. So
Yeah.
I like the time thing with mine, and I know yours is online too. So you probably have like the similar thing where it's like, well, I don't have a deadline of. Do you have like deadlines where you have to get something done on Friday?
I actually do. So mine are
Okay.
5-week classes. It's just one class at a time. So I do have certain due dates. I can work ahead within the class. And you can request to double up on classes, but mine's just one class at a time, which has been working for me. I just have so much other things going on that the one
Yeah.
class works very well.
So yeah, like I feel like that, and like you said, that I feel like that's very important to know your situation when you're doing your masters. I mean, I feel like anyone can get their masters. Don't get me wrong, but there's a right time and a wrong time probably to do things and double up on classes versus not. So I think that is a good thing about WGU. They kind of know situations and they're kind of known for that. As far as another good thing that I kind of liked was that when I obtained my master's, I've always dreamed of being like a curriculum developer or like a instructional coach for STEM. And that's always been kind of one of my goals when I first got my master's. And I told them, hey, could I get my master's in STEM curriculum and
Cool.
instruction? Like the paper doesn't say that, but you can say that if you do everything in STEM. So I did everything in STEM. So like I said, it's kind of like a choice thing there again,
Oh, cool.
and which made it like I would say beneficial for me
Hmm.
with a lot of the classes. And that was another thing I kind of liked about my master's was that there was no necessarily worthless classes. Like I remember, your first year of college where you're like, really, I got to take this class. Like this is a waste of time and money. Whereas like there really wasn't much of that. There's maybe like one or two classes where I'm like, man, this doesn't necessarily apply to the school I work for, just because I teach at a really small school, but I'm like, I might teach at a bigger school someday. So I just feel like there wasn't as much.
Fluff.
Yeah, and I hate that, and I
I
always have.
do.
Even in the regular old elementary, middle school, high school classroom, I'm like, fluff is, I think, just a waste of time.
Yeah,
In
I
my
agree.
So that was like one thing where I was like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that. So it was nice to, use STEM and not to have fluff. And I got to see kind of as far as what makes STEM different from the rest of the instructional strategies they had. How could STEM be combined with different ones? I got to try them out in my classroom. And for me, I'm an instructional theory nut. Like I like to try all kinds of new things. Like I'm never not down to try something new. Like if someone tells me like, "Hey, I try this in my room," I'm like, "I'm gonna try that and see what happens."
I'm the same way.
Yeah, and I always try anything. You know, what I mean, I almost try anything in my classroom just because you never know how kids are gonna react. So, getting to try different instructional theories and learning about them, and then being able to kind of remember them and use them. And then if other teachers are like, "Hey, I have this problem," I'm always like, "Oh, I learned about this in my master's program, and it was like a form of STEM, but you could use it." And they'd be like, "Oh, I'll try it," and they might use it in their own way, but it helps. So
That's so good. That's so
yeah,
useful.
and that's always been kind of my passion, is like instruction like that. So I think it's cool just teaching new subjects, or teaching subjects in new ways that we're not used to. And that's kind of what I got from my master's when it came to this like STEM, and things are going to always be ever changing. And that was what made it fun for me, at least, was that it was always something different. I might have to write a paper about this learning theory or this different kind of instructional theory and how it could relate to what I'm doing in my room. And for me, that interests me. So I really did think that was useful with WGU, and I think it works really well that way. Another thing I really liked, but this could also be a bad thing necessarily, is like you also with WGU, you don't like talk to your instructor really. I don't know
Oh,
how you.
yeah.
So I don't really like. I
Yeah.
didn't really talk to them, and I know like some people are like, well, I don't want to get my master's unless it's face to face. I have an instructor, and they're kind of guiding me. Whereas like a lot of these online programs, it's very independent.
Yes.
And I wish people would have told me that before, not because I couldn't handle it, but so I could be prepared for it. Because I remember when I kind of started, I didn't really know what to expect. And then my principal, she actually went to WGU.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Just like for her administrative, not for
Oh,
her.
wow.
Yeah. So for administrative, she got it there. And she was like, hey, she's like, they are gonna want you to play games when it comes to writing paper sometimes, and you got to play. And like, so she kind of like sat me down and was like, told me how
Oh,
independent it was and how to do things in a timely manner and stuff. So for me, that was more of a positive, but for someone else, I have that under bad because that could be a very bad thing if you
have
fall
it
under
under
it.
that.
Yeah, because I mean, it is hard being an independent learner like that because
Yeah.
sometimes you might interpret something one way, especially when you're talking instruction and curriculum, and they might interpret it a different way, and they'd be like, "Well, you're not ready to move on," because
Hmm.
that's how WG works. Is you have to pass papers, and then you go to the next one and the next one.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, it's very different. I would now I'm on to the bad, which I hate saying the bad, but I think it's
I'm on
important.
to the bad.
I'm on to the bad. Yeah, it sounds, and I hate
So
and I hate
funny.
saying these things, but like nothing's perfect. So I'm gonna go and saying that I'm not here to put down WGU. So if you work for WGU or you go there, I liked it overall. I'm just telling you things that I think, and they even asked me what are some things we can improve, and I'm like, these are the things I think. So
And these are not sponsored. This is not a
exactly.
sponsored episode. We're just talking about this because
So
we
yeah,
think
so
we
no
should.
one can be all upset and come at me. That's what I'm saying. So the number one thing that was frustrating, I thought, was basically like if you did meet with your professor, like which I did a couple times, they'd be like, "Oh, I really like your paper, turn it in," and then a committee reads your paper like it's like a
Whoa.
company. Yeah, and sometimes they wouldn't pass it, and I was like, "Well, the professor." So like they weren't on the same page all the time, and that was frustrating, especially like my capstone a little bit. They had some run-ins and problems with that. So that was frustrating for me because they were telling me, "Hey, you're going to be done. You passed your capstone." And then I get an email and it's like, "This isn't right. This isn't right." And then I had to be on the phone with them and I had to do all kinds of extra stuff. So I think,
Wow.
and they said that's something they were working on at the time. They said, a lot of times we're not on the same page and we need to be on the same page. So I'm like, that makes me feel better, that this won't happen again to someone or you guys will try to prevent it. The other bad thing is time is money in this sense because the less time you spend the cheaper it's going to be.
Oh,
So
right. That's
yeah,
right.
so if you go into it kind of saying like, well, I'll spend like 3 years, it's going to be very expensive. Like,
Can if you go quicker than what you paid for, can you get your money back?
no. And so that's actually something very interesting. My
Oh,
principal, when she did hers, she wanted to do her administrative hours in the first semester because she did all the classes. She almost got done in 6 months for
wow.
administrative. And they were like, nope, you have to do it the next 6 months. So they made her pay, I forget how much it is for a chunk of time, X amount of dollars basically to do a month of work. And she was
Oh,
not very
wow.
happy. Whereas mine was like, I think I got mine done in 9 months, 10
Okay,
months.
that's pretty good.
So not too bad, but like I felt like I basically paid for that second half of the time. And like it's bad because time is money, but like the nice part is I know a lot of schools will pay for your master's or portion. And
Yeah.
mine told me if I got mine done within a year, that would cover almost all of it. So that kind of gave me
Mm,
an incentive per contract of Indiana
hmm.
to get it done.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that could also I put it under bad because it could be a bad thing really quick. It, depending on what kind of person you are. So a lot of things depends on your outlook, I guess.
Yes. Did you get your master's right after your undergrad? Did
No,
you
I
go?
waited I
You
waited
waited.
a year. I
Okay.
waited 1 year. And I'm kind of glad I did, but at the same time I'm like, man, I think I could have got it done still, but it would have been really stressful because my first year STEM was a lot.
Yeah. Well, what was your
Yeah.
undergrad in? What did you get your undergrad degree in?
I got mine. It was just a bachelor's in elementary education with a
Okay.
concentration in math science. Like that's all you could do at the time. Like I
Oh,
took
okay.
one or two STEM classes, but that's all they offered.
Yeah.
And I took extra like science experiment classes and stuff. But yeah, it was like a basic thing, but still, I liked it. But I wish like now, like I know a lot of schools do a bachelor's in STEM, which I think
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
So cool.
I'm like, you guys don't know how good you have it. We didn't
I
have that option back in
know.
my day.
Well, I'm back in my day. I'm older than you.
Yeah. It's just funny, yeah. And it's crazy. Like it's like a lot of things they didn't offer, they do now. So
Yes.
but yeah, and then the last bad thing I had, like I said, is the independent learner kind of thing I talked about. And then things I remember most of all was that I did for my capstone, I did like a rocket project. So it was all about how chemicals react to one another, and the kids built rockets based on that in little test tubes, and they
Oh.
figured out what was the best recipe for their rocket to shoot up. And I had to give them like a pre-test, a post-test. I had to look at like all kinds of different factors that I could talk about all day that would bore you to death, but basically it really excited me because I used the engineering design process, which they probably never get a paper that has that.
No.
And the kids showed growth tremendously from their pre-test to post-test, what they were able to obtain and explain and actually apply on the test. So I was like really happy because I'm like, it shows that STEM works.
Yeah.
And that's why I did the master because I wanted to prove to myself, like, STEM instruction works. So getting to do that at a capstone level like that and having someone read it and saying like, oh, this is a really cool project. Like this is really neat. And then I turned around and put it on my store because like I was
Cool.
like, I need to share this with other people. So it was one of those things like I will remember about my experience more than anything is that like moment where I was like, it works. And that's, why we do what we do.
Yeah.
So the good, bad, and things to remember with you, what would you say?
So I'm in my ninth year teaching, and I didn't get my master's before this. I just didn't know what to get it in. And the same thing, time is money. I worked in a couple districts by choice for various reasons, but my I guess previous district, they didn't honor if you had a master's. It didn't matter if you had a master's or not, you didn't get paid more. So when you're in your first few years of teaching, you don't make a whole lot. And so in my head, I'm all, well, if I get my master's, I'm not going to get paid back for that long term at the time. And I wasn't sure what to get it in. I'm all, maybe curriculum development. That sounds interesting to me. An admin role doesn't seem very interesting for me per se. So it was funny. Well, I did a lot, and we've talked about this in the other podcast, like the badging systems and different online trainings in one of our previous episodes. So I just thought for me, well, I think those are worth it. Like I can get trained and learn this information. So fast forward to the pandemic. um, I had actually looked at your program at Western Governors. Actually, I was deciding between yours and the one I actually chose. And so I'm a little more than halfway, like we had talked about, but I'm getting my degree in STEM leadership, and sorry, I can't talk. In conjunction, I get my STEM certificate from Nice. Nice.
Oh,
We've
nice.
got, and we
Yeah.
I don't know how to say this. This has also been a discussion. But in conjunction, I get that certificate. So I'm finished with the certificate. It's hanging up behind my head. So if you're watching the video,
Ooh.
yeah, little Michael's picture frame back there. I used a
There you go.
coupon. Yes, I did. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. For me, part of my undergrad, mine was in elementary education with an emphasis on it was a degree in liberal arts with an emphasis on elementary education. So
Okay.
almost a decade ago, that was the option I had. But anyway, part of my classes even back then were online, and I enjoyed that as a learner. So now it's improved so much, and it's still improving. So again, for American College of Education, it is 100% online, and I don't need to tune in live for anything. So there are specific due dates each week. Each class is 5 weeks long, which is super quick, but each week has the same format, which I really enjoy the consistency of it. So it's easy to manage during the school year. During the summer, I don't ever feel overwhelmed. There are financing options, but you just pay for one class at a time. So
Ooh,
also,
I
yeah,
like that.
yeah, you can pay more if you want. I don't. So it's great because you can pay for the one class and you pay right before the class starts.
That is cool. I've never heard that. I like that. That's kind of like the time thing, because I feel like
Yes.
if you're paying for one thing at a time like that, you're gonna concentrate on it more, and you're gonna be able to be like, okay, this is feasible. Whereas like
Yeah.
pay for 10 classes all at
Yes.
once, it's like, oh my gosh, I feel overwhelmed.
And just as a teacher, I mean, my district now does give you credit for a master's. So that's part of what my consideration was. But it is very affordable in that sense because it is every 5 weeks. So it kind of lines up with paychecks too. And I'll be done in a little over a year. So that's my STEM certificate. And that's 6 of the credits, 6 of the 31, 32 credits.
Mhm.
That's what I love. I really love that. Because it gives me I sometimes need a little more structure laid out for me. So I get things done faster when I can, but I like having that deadline. For me, that works well. I guess it's not bad, but I guess a little annoying or different. There aren't any books, at least for this
Yeah.
program.
So I
No
gotta
books.
ask you this. In your courses like mine, it would have online books, obviously, and they would be like, "Hey, read chapters 5 through 7." I
No.
never read them. I just Googled the question because I'm like, that's what we. I mean, that's what I tell my kids to do. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what we do in real life. If you have a question about a question, you Google the question. You know what I mean?
Ours is
That
like
makes me feel
that. Like I
better.
have a quiz and it goes along with the presentations. And so
Oh,
I have to watch those, and they can watch
okay.
them at any time. And that's what the quiz is. So you actually, and they're very specific to the presentation.
Well, that's kind of nice then, because you know what it's gonna be about. It's not like
Hmm.
take this quiz,
Yes.
subject question mark. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
exactly. So it's interesting because I know there's a lot of great STEM books out there. I can see why they might do it that way because more evergreen. So I do read more live articles in their database. So that's what you're paying for is access to scholarly articles, which are more current depending
Mhm.
on how you search it. You can't really work ahead like yours where you finish and then you can do the next class and the next class. You can request to double up on classes. I personally haven't because I think it's enough. You can work ahead in the class, but I don't know. There's a kind of, oh, and this one, I guess right now, as we're listening, you can't turn in Google files. They have
What
to
is
be
this?
all like Microsoft or like a PDF. And you
That's
guys, I
that's on
can't
my list.
handle it.
Well, that's how mine was too. And I remember being like, why? And they're like, well, we're gonna try to eventually convert things to Google Docs. I'm like, I hope so. Like
Yeah,
this is the Google Air, man. This is everything. I do everything in Google. And they're like,
I do
well,
too.
people have a lot of they said for us at least, they had a lot of like errors and stuff, like grammatical errors. I'm like, why do they not get Grammarly? Like Grammarly's free.
Weird.
It's great. I don't know. See, that bothered me too. So I'm glad you said that because I didn't say that, but that is something that like got at me for sure.
Yeah, it's just kind of odd. I know there's an online version of Microsoft Word, but I don't think I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. So I don't know. I just get annoyed. And so I feel like in my papers look really ugly, which really bothers me. I know it's not about how cute it looks, but I'm like, oh, this looks so ugly.
Yeah, I know. I was the same way. I'm like, I don't like the way it looks. Ugh.
But overall, I've been really impressed. I really enjoy it. It's very affordable and manageable, especially during the busy school year. I can always get my things done. I really like the classes also. I've been learning a lot, like things I never thought about that I've been using in my classroom, and also co-teaching as well. So I also having the certificate and the degree in STEM leadership. It's not an admin degree, but I think it's where I'm at this point in my career. It's helped motivate me in a different way in education, where almost 10 years ago, I don't know, even past that, like however long when I started education, I never thought I would be in this position. So it's just kind of, if you're kind of in that you've been teaching for a while, this kind of has invigorated me in a different way to help keep going. So it's kind of sparked some more exciting things and ideas.
I like that you said that too, because I feel like a lot of times when teachers feel like they maybe don't want to be in the classroom or they're getting tired of things, they feel like, well, I have to become a principal, which I don't think is
Mhm.
true nowadays because there's a lot of different positions that you could take on. Like both of our master's degrees, we could be instructional coaches,
Yep.
curriculum developers for companies, or curriculum developers for a district. So I feel like there's not necessarily like one way where you have to be like, oh, I have to do a principal. Because I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I ever want to be a principal. Like I've had people ask me, and I'm like, I just don't think I'd enjoy it. I
I've
really
been
don't.
asked that also. Okay, like right now I'm saying I don't want to watch like in 10 years
I was
or
gonna
a
say.
principal. If anyone's hiring me and you listen to this podcast, this is September 29th, 2020. Please don't hold anything against me. But I agree with you too. I don't think everyone is meant to be a principal. I think that,
I
yeah,
agree.
like you said, there's other leadership roles that aren't necessarily being in charge of a school in that way.
Exactly. And I feel that because it's always like people are like, well, you're young, you should go back. Because I think with my masters, at least, I could do like 4 or 5 more classes, and I could get
Yeah.
like another master's degree in leadership, basically like my administrative. And I'm like, I don't want to because I know if I get that, then people will pressure me in doing that. And like, I know what I want to do. I know what I'm
Yeah.
good at. I know my strengths. I don't want to settle for something just because people want me to do it. So don't feel like
Exactly.
I feel if you're listening to this, don't feel like, well, I need to get the master's degree because I need to get the administrative because I'm tired of teaching and that's the only way out. Because I don't think that's true.
No, and I was a classroom teacher before this, and I still didn't have my master's going into STEM. And I mean, I guess by some other people's standards, I might be behind with a master's because I'm in my ninth year and I just started it. But hey, I'm not going to go into student loan debt. So
Exactly.
I think that's important to keep in mind. Don't
Mhm.
just get a master's and be in debt. That I don't think that's important.
Mhm.
And do
No, I
something
think that's
you're
huge.
interested in.
Yeah, and I think that's big too because like a lot of times, your district might offer a bonus so you feel like you need to go in debt or so I feel like you got to weigh your options, and like with both of our cases, I feel like they were pretty affordable. Like
Yeah.
I remember
Oh,
like
yeah.
like when I talked to my wife, she's like, "Oh, I don't want to go more in debt." When I was thinking about getting my master's, and I'm like, "Well, this is pretty affordable," and she was like, "Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
super affordable."
yours is very affordable. That's why I
Yeah,
like yours. I think both of our programs are comparable in price from when I was looking at it.
yeah, and which is like nice because it's like you don't have to break your bank to get the master's. You're still learning what you feel like you need
Yep.
to, and you can apply it the way you would if you paid woohoo bucks for
Hmm.
something else. So
Definitely.
for sure. So we are super excited to bring you this awesome episode. We would love to connect with you on social media. And we are very excited because we actually have a very special series coming up. We are calling it the STEM Mastermind. We will be interviewing some current teachers who teach STEM and tech, some of the best in the business is what we like to say. So we're excited. We're not going to tell you their names yet. That's going to be kind of like a surprise.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of different names that we're excited about. We've been reaching out to different people. I know I've been thinking about this one all the time, this whole series. And I
Mhm.
know you're the same way because we keep on thinking like, oh, we could talk to this person about this and it would help our listeners. So we are constantly thinking about you guys and our STEM mastermind series that's coming out. We're going to be releasing by this point that you're listening to it. We have released stuff on our social media about it. So make sure you share that with your friends
Yeah.
and whoever else that you know would find that tremendously helpful because we're trying to release this in order just to bring you guys the best STEM minds in the business. Make sure to subscribe to all of us on your favorite platforms as we release things, and make sure you follow us on the Innovative Teacher Podcast, and also our Patreon. If you haven't headed over there, there's a bunch of goodies in there, a bunch of resources that we have created. Thank you for listening to today's Innovative Teachers. We will see you in the next episode.